Hello everyone and welcome to Board Games Bourbon. I'm Glenn Flaherty and right now we're going to talk about Rise of the Empire, the new campaign expansion for Imperial settlers. Now what this expansion does is it turns what you would normally play as a resource acquisition game into a campaign mode that has replayability even with just one faction. But to really appreciate everything that the campaign mode brings, which are quest cards, a campaign sheet, and different inventions and provinces that you can get, you have to have a basic understanding of how the fundamental game works. Now, I'm going to touch on this briefly, but then we're going to go to this. You can even skip ahead to that point. I'll try to put a time mark in it. Now, in Imperial Settlers itself, like I said, it's a resource acquisition game. And what you're going to do is you're going to start the game with a bunch of cards right here called deals and production lines and some starting faction bonuses. You're going to get some resources here at the beginning of every round. There are 5 rounds, and every round the game kind of gets bigger and more ornate, and you're trying to squeeze every point you can out of your empire. So this is your starting resources. You also have a row of cards that go here called features that kind of trigger when you do certain things. And then lastly, down here, you have actions. And actions are kind of like trading points. You trade in resources here, you get other resources out. You spend those resources to build more cards that give you more production or features or more actions. And you kind of get this convection going where everything feeds upon itself. It's very robust and really fun. You have 2 types of cards. You have generic cards, and then you have faction cards specific to you. And there's 4 kinds of factions. The replayability comes in the game via learning your different factions. They all have their different strengths. Like, for example, what I have in front of us here are the Romans. And the Roman cards in general focus on stone more than anything else. Other ones will have different strengths, and you try to maximize towards that. The game has both a multiplayer mode, which has a little bit of interaction. Interaction comes in the form of drafting these little cards in the beginning, and occasionally what's called raising, burning down someone's card. It's not a big deal. It doesn't happen too often. They get a little perk from it. You get a perk from it. But that's about it as far as the interaction. You're really more involved in doing your own thing. There's also a wonderful solo mode that plays very swiftly against a deck of cards, and that deck of cards will burn down your buildings on the enemy's behalf. Either mode is really, really cool. Now, if you need more replayability than what comes in the box, and by the way, look how big that stack of cards is. There's a lot of options there. You can buy expansions that give you new factions to explore. You can buy expansions for new mechanics you can introduce to the game. There's a lot going on there, and it's actually pretty fun to do. But what this campaign does is this campaign lets you take that one faction and grow it and watch it evolve. And it also changes the decisions that you have. You know, whereas in the base game, your decisions are, I want to beat my opponent. I want to destroy my opponent. I want to have more points than my opponent. In the expansion, in the campaign mode, what's happening is you're going to have mid-game decisions. And those come in the form of what are called quests. Like, for example, let's go ahead and take a look at this quest here. I'm going to put the camera right there on it. Okay, this quest here. Now, what this quest says is absolute like Sargon of Akkad. And this is a quest. It says you have to have a certain amount of resources on hand. And if you do, you are going to advance one of your trackers on this campaign sheet 3 times. Everyone else who gets it after you only gets 1. So there's a race to do this. Now, why do you want to advance these quests? There's 3 tracks of quests. And as you advance on each one of these, you're unlocking starting goods for your next game. That's why you want to move up. Now, there's going to be two reasons you're going to move up in a second. I'll get to the second one in a minute. As you move up, you get goodies, like you might get a province. A province essentially is a starting power that's good and bad. You might get a wild token. You might not have to pay for something in the future. And these go and go and go. Now, as you move up this track, and you do want to move as much as you can, once you get to the end, you're going to upgrade your age. So we all start in antiquity, but as the game goes on, and antiquity is in the form of these cards. Okay? Once you get to antiquity, then you get to the Middle Ages, and then you get to the Industrial Age. What's the implication of that? Well, when you play a game and you get a certain amount of points, okay? Now, in this case, I got 64 points. What you do is you spend your points on buying inventions for your society. And when you get that card for your society, that is only for your society. And that is another little bonus to you. So for in this case here, this one is a 30-point card, and this is called Irrigation. The feature that occurs is you may store one worker in your faction storage. Building bonus 2, which means, normally you can only save one thing. In the case here of the Romans, I normally can only save my swords, which helps me raise buildings. But here I can store a worker. And when I build this, I get 2 food. And I think that's a tomato, even though some people say it's an apple. Nay, I say. But tomatoes were not in the Roman Empire because the Roman Empire fell before the discovery of New World. But that's a tangent. Okay, that's a 30-pointer. 35 points, I could have gotten astronomy. The feature here is at the beginning of the action phase, you may look at the top 2 cards of your faction deck. Okay, decide if you want to invest. And there's just a whole host. Here's another one here that says engineering for 45 points. You may store up to 3 wood in your faction storage building. A bonus, you get 2 right away. So you buy these. So you take your score, you spend it here, and you keep the difference. The difference is going to spill over. And you can only have 1 invention per age. Then when I move up to antiquity, to Middle Ages, we might have a marble craft. This is a 40-point card. Again, it's a feature. Every time you build one of your gray-black buildings is raised, you gain 1 stone. Here is a 55-point one, education. Feature, each time you make a wood or a point deal, gain 1 stone. So there's a lot of stones in there in the ones I'm showing you. And it goes on. Then you advance once more. And then you can get industrial, which is really cool. 50 point. The cards are also more expensive. Production belt. Feature, each time you spend a person to activate an action, you may spend 1 stone to gain a point. Okay, and you want those points, right? Because ultimately you do want to win each individual game. Okay, now this goes on like this. Here, chemistry, last one from the industrial age. Feature, during the production phase, if you produce at least 3 gold wilds, move one of your tracks by 1. So that's going to help as well. So you're moving up these tracks not only to get starting benefits for your next game, but you're also trying to move through the ages and get inventions. You can only have 1 invention per age, so you do want to move as fast as you can. Okay, now the debate there is, do I want to get these quests done early, or do I want to go for building buildings that might help me win this particular game? But there's another interesting twist to it, and that is along the way, like on this track here, I might get a province, or at the end of the game, I get a province. Now these provinces are both good and bad. So this province right here says this is the magical village. Action, lose 2 points to immediately draw a common building. Nice. And build it, ignoring the cost. So like a free building. That's awesome. But there is a yin and a yang to this. At the end of the game, you're going to lose 5 points. So having the province and having that in-game power directly affects getting inventions in the future. Okay, that could be good, that could be bad. Furthermore, to have these provinces, you also have to pay tributes. So every time you have one of these cards, you have to go over here to your piece of paper. Okay, and on this piece of paper, what you're going to notice is that there are these different regions. These stand for your provinces, and you have to pay some type of tribute to have that province. So in this case, in one of my games, I picked a province that produces people. The cost I'm going to pay by the end of the game, every game I pay, I have to pay to maintain that province. I'm going to pay 2 people. If I cannot pay that 2-person cost, I get 0 points. No good whatsoever. But if I do pay the tribute, I only lose 5 points. And that sounds really cool, and you're getting these increasing powers. But as the game goes on, more and more tributes have to pay, and it becomes a larger and larger burden. And then the super cool element happens where your empire might go into decline. And if your empire has decreasing scores 3 times in a row, your civilization, your empire, your society has fallen. Wow, the replayability here is really cool. You have so many elements of decisions that you're working on. It's no longer just taking on your opponent or defeating the solo deck where you're trying to have like 10 buildings or something. Now you're deciding, okay, do I want to go for these quests? Which quest do I want to go for? Because which quest I go for gives me different bonuses. I could get a sword here to help raise buildings. I could go here for my wild. I could get another province, which is going to help me in the short term. All these kinds of things. When I get those, what kind of tribute do I want to pay? Can I afford that tribute? Do I want to spend my score on a low invention now so that there's carryover, so next time maybe I can build a bigger one? So many cool decisions. I've really enjoyed my experience here. I would say this is almost mandatory. Boy, did this give this life. It took it from a game that was a quick Euro, a quick, easy to get on the table Euro, easy to explain, and really made it something long-lasting and involved. And it makes you interested. It's almost like watching Game of Thrones. You want to watch the whole series and see where it goes. You just don't know. A lot of fun. And I would say just as strong solo as multiplayer. So that is Rise of the Empire for Imperial Settlers. Again, if you don't know what Imperial Settlers looks like, that's the main box, and that is the expansion. Highly recommended if you're into Euro games. Highly recommended if you like campaigns, because it's one of the easier ones to actuate. So if you have any questions about gameplay, please let me know. I'm happy to help. And until next time, friends, take care. Bye.